number 10 of Pickswise Playbook. I am your host, Chris Rose, joined by our gambling expert, Jared Smith, our resident offensive lineman, Ross Tucker, who once again is holed up in some hotel somewhere in the country. Do we get to play 20 questions to figure out where you are today?
Well, I'm actually calling the night's game. It's going to be fun. It's the Ravens and the Dolphins. I'll be with Iron Eagle on Westwood 1, so very much looking forward to it. So you can turn the TV down and listen to your boy tonight. It should be awesome.
All right, so later tonight when we do the actual analysis of this game, people should really perk up their ears. You will have no excuse to guide people in the wrong direction, is what you're telling us.
I think that's accurate. Yes. If I'm not an expert on this game, I shouldn't be an expert on any of them.
Okay, good. Jared, I have a quick question for you. Last week, favorites went 4-10 against the spread. Is that an alarming number or merely a kind of a pothole in the gambling road? What should people do with that?
1 week, it would be a pothole, but it's actually been 2 weeks because if you go back to last week, they also went 4-10. You know, I think it was 10-4-1 actually underdogs against the spread. There was a push in there. So now we have a 2 week stretch where underdogs are cashing at, I would say, an alarming rate. Now, these things do tend to even out, and I would not be surprised if it's flipped this week because, as you know, the market, buy low, sell high. Now everyone will start piling in on the underdogs. And then things will flip to the other side. So I would not base your handicap solely on, they're an underdog, they must cover because all the underdogs covered last week. That would be the wrong approach.
All right. Once again, we are here to make your Thursdays, your Sundays, and your Monday nights more enjoyable, help you become a smarter, better out there. A few things here. We want you to download the Pickswise app. That way they got you covered not only on the NFL, but college football, hockey, and basketball are in full swing. Whatever you want to gamble on, it is right there to point you in the right direction. We're going to cover all the primetime games as well, but let's kick it off right now with a little Sunday night football here in Week 10. And that'll get us going with the AFC West battle out in Las Vegas. The Kansas City Chiefs, they are coming off that 13-7 win over the Green Bay Packers. Still didn't put up big-time points, but got the win. They're over 500. The Raiders have had a few tumultuous weeks. They did not look good coming off the bye. They lost against the New York Giants. Here you've got Kansas City that is actually a road favorite in this one. Jared, what do you got?
Well, if you're betting the Chiefs consistently over the last 20 games, you are a big loser. If you're betting them straight up, well, they've won a bunch of games. They're 14-6 straight up, but they're 6-14 against the spread, which is kind of an ironic or I guess a surprising number because from my past experiences doing some research here, usually, and it's about 70 to 80% over the last few years, teams that cover the game or cover the spread also win the game. Those two things go in tandem. But the Chiefs have been an anomaly. The one thing I will say about this line, it's the shortest of the season for Kansas City. So they were a favorite of about 2.5, 3 points against the Bills. And now, again, they've been favored in every game this year, but this is the shortest of the favorites this season. So that gives me a little bit of, okay, maybe the market's starting to catch up to this Chiefs team. And that's probably why I like Kansas City because it's less than a field goal. It's a primetime game against an opponent that Patrick Mahomes has dominated in his career. He's 5-1 straight up against the Raiders in his career. And I just feel like we are going to see an explosion eventually. And why not against this Raiders team that I think is on the back foot of some of these emotional things that have happened over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, the Henry Ruggs thing, then the Arnett. They cut their first-round corner last week. So both their first-round picks from last year are both off the team. And I think eventually that will start to catch up with them production-wise, mentality-wise. They didn't look great against the Giants on Sunday. So I'm going to lay it with the Chiefs here. And maybe I'm crazy to keep laying it with Kansas City. But I was actually on Green Bay last week. But this week I think Kansas City does bounce back and show you just how good they can be.
I'm going the other way. I'm going the total other way. I love when I go head-to-head with you, Jared. So first of all.
Are you sure about that? You want to check the record?
All right. It just makes it more fun. It hasn't been as profitable as it should be yet, but it makes it more fun. Two thoughts here. Okay. First of all, I think the Raiders are a tremendous teaser leg, taking them up to getting 8.5. I would be surprised if they get blown out by the Chiefs. But the Chiefs are broken, and I will believe that the Chiefs are fixed when I see it. I know they won the last two games. They were fortunate to beat the Giants And if Aaron Rodgers played, the Chiefs would have gotten smoked by the Packers. I do agree about everything that's happened to the Raiders. I think that did affect them last week. The Henry Ruggs thing, I think that was last week. I think the Raiders get back on track. Love them as a teaser leg. I even really like them getting the points. I think there's an outstanding chance that the Raiders win this game outright.
Two other notes here before we move on in the gambling space. Last year, the Chiefs 1-5 against the spread in the division. They're already 0-1 this year. So they're 1-6 over the last 2 years. That ain't pretty. Speaking of ain't pretty, Ross, I hate to say this. Jared is 6-1 against you head-to-head when you're on opposite sides. Any rebuttal there, sir?
Yes. That one that I won, that was the one that I really felt confident about. That was the one I really felt strongly about. And that's how I feel about the Raiders Sunday night.
That's fair.
Okay, let's go down to Dallas, where the Cowboys got blown out last week. They didn't even score until there was like 5 minutes left in the game against the Denver Broncos, who just toasted them. And now Dallas is about a 9-point favorite as Atlanta comes to town. Keep this in mind. Atlanta is back to 500. They are currently the 7th seed in the NFC playoff chase. But circle it on your calendar. This is a Dan Quinn revenge game.
Oh, yeah.
Ross, how do you see it playing out?
Throw out the records when it's a Dan Quinn revenge game because you never know what's going to happen. No, I like the Falcons. And I'll tell you why. They've been competitive in every game all year. I have a lot of faith in Arthur Smith, their head coach. You know, this year has proven the value of paying a quarterback like Matt Ryan. The Falcons are not a very good team. They're not a very talented team. And even Calvin Ridley's not even playing for them. Matt Ryan has kept them in these games. Matt Ryan has won a bunch of these games for them, and I think they'll stay there with the Cowboys. I like the Falcons to keep the game. Well, I think the Cowboys win the game, but I think the Falcons do a nice job of keeping the game close.
One of the surprising things for me early in the week is to see how much love the Falcons are getting here. I would have expected the public to buy in on Dallas another week and give them one pass. But I mean, it's still early in the week, but I'm seeing a decent amount of spread tickets come in on the Falcons. I am worried that if Atlanta, because the one game that I really believed in Atlanta was the game against Carolina, and they looked dreadful in that game. So I haven't had a great read on this Falcons team this year. I thought they were going to lose that game last week in typical Atlanta fashion, but I give them a ton of credit. And I think Arthur Smith has instilled a little more confidence in the overall offensive scheme than maybe years past. And so maybe those late comebacks that always – I feel like Matt Ryan was the king of getting to the red zone when he needed a late score and then they fall short. But maybe they're finally starting to put some of the pieces together. I think laying it with Dallas is definitely not the right move, and I do think we're going to see some regression for them against the spread. We saw it last week. That was an anomaly. I wouldn't expect them to get blown out again this week. But I definitely would take the points here with Atlanta. I don't love it, but maybe Ross can convince me to sprinkle like a half unit on it.
You know, one thing I noticed just watching the game, Dak did not look good.
No.
Now, I know there were several drops, but he completed less than half of his passes. It was his lowest completion percentage in a game since his rookie year of 2016. I wonder if that calf isn't – I mean, there was a 4th down throw he had to Cedric Wilson that was not close. It was just a little bit all over the place. He was airmailing a few. I'm wondering – I'm not saying, hey, Cooper Rush, go save him. But I'm just saying.
Defenses are a little different this week. Denver's got a really good defensive unit. Atlanta not as strong there.
I know.
So we'll see if there's some positive regression for Dak this week, but that's something to keep an eye on for sure.
All right, let's go to a playoff rematch from a year ago. It will not be a playoff preview for this year because Washington's involved, and they have just been dreadful and disappointing, particularly on the defensive side of the football. The champs and Tommy Brady come into town. They're nearly a double-digit favorite. And, Jared, I know sometimes these big lines, they scare you a lot. So which side do you sit on?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think this is a good – and I know after last week I've got some favorites on the card, and people are like, wait a minute, all the underdogs covered last week. What are you thinking, Jared? I don't view it that way. I look at each game independently, and I try to predict the final score in my head and make my own line in my head. And I put this one in the category of I do not know how Tampa Bay is going to be stopped by a Washington defense that was already struggling, and they lost Montez Sweat before their bye week, and they also lost their center. And we talk about the offensive lineman not having a huge impact on the spread, except the center. So they face a Tampa Bay defense that has been sitting around for 2 weeks stewing about getting blown up by the Saints. And now you get this Washington defense and their offensive line that is thin. And I just feel like this is going to be one of those spots where Tampa Bay shows you why they might be the best team in the NFL. There's been some regression with some of these other really good teams over the last couple of weeks, except for maybe Arizona. But I would expect Tampa Bay fresh off the bye. Brady's been phenomenal, 15-4 straight up off the bye in his career. I expect a really solid effort from this Bucs team. And say what you want about the big number, but if I don't think Washington can win this game, which I don't, I'm going to lay it with Tampa.
I don't dislike that at all. In fact, I might go in with you on that, Jared. I think Tampa is going to put it to Washington. I guess the only thing that gave me a little bit of pause is I feel like Washington's last 2 games, they actually played decently. Certainly against the Packers, they did. I thought that was their best game of the year. But you make a lot of good points about Brady, the Bucs, coming off a loss and a bye. That feels like a double whammy for Washington. I could only lay it with Tampa here. I certainly would not take Washington in the points.
The Bucs, by the way, the number 1 scoring team in the NFL, and Tom Brady, who's having this magnificent season in terms of passing yards and touchdowns, where he's atop the leaderboard, also is facing the worst-ranked pass defense.
Yeah,
I smell explosion. I like it. I like it, Ross, that you're willing to dip that big old ugly toe of yours in Jared's pool. I like it. Do you have funky feet, by the way? Do you have funky offensive line feet?
You know what? I've got my second toe is longer than my big toe. Is that funky, or is that's sort of common?
No, I think that happens to 17% of humans. Keep going.
I'm looking down at mine now. I'm trying to.
That's the only thing that's weird, I guess, because it's weird because like when you were younger and they would see how big your feet were and they would check where your big. I'm like, yeah, but my the one next to it's further out.
Is that a metric they care about for offensive linemen? How big your feet are? Is that something that they grade?
I don't think so. I think they probably like the wider they are, they probably like. But I've never heard them really talk much. They talk a lot about your ankles and your butt and your calves and your quads and your hips and your knees. I haven't heard feet that much. That's interesting, actually, Jared.
So, by the way, everybody, if on your bingo card you took the over on Ross's second toe being bigger than his Sergeant Holka toe, congratulations. You're a big winner here today.
It's huge.
Let's get back to the football, if you don't mind. I took us down the wrong road, so that's my fault. I'll raise my hand and say I screwed up. Okay, we're checking in on your Philadelphia Eagles there, Ross Tucker. The good news is they are on the road because they suck at home. They are winless there at the Link. I don't know what's happening, but now they're taking on a Denver team that we talked about earlier. Had their best performance of the season down there in Dallas. Denver's about a field goal favorite here. Does that sound like enough, Ross? I know it's your beloved Eagles, but
no, I mean, I like the Eagles in this game. I think it's a coin flip game. I really do. I mean,
really?
I know that Denver played very well last week against Dallas, but I thought the second half for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, that's as well as they've played all year. Mm-hmm. You're right about them playing better on the road. The Broncos are not as good as they showed against the Cowboys. That feels like an aberration, a one-time thing for me. I think it's a toss-up field goal game either way. 50% chance I win, 50% chance I push. I'll take it.
But hold on. Before you hop in there, Jared, that defense is legit. They're second in the league in giving up 18 points per game. I know they just traded Von Miller, but still look at what they did to Dallas. It was like the number 1 offense basically coming into this. How can you say that's an aberration?
Because I don't think Denver's very good, and they were up 30-0 on the Cowboys. You think if they played 10 more times, Chris, that the Broncos would be up 30-0 and every time? How about none of them? That's why it's an aberration. They played really well. They deserve all the kudos, all the credit. Let's see if they can do it again. I am betting no.
Oddly enough, I have the power to schedule the Broncos and the Cowboys playing 10 times. We're going to do it over a 3-day span. So one day we're going to play 4 games, another day 3 each. So I'll let you know how that goes.
I use that math. I usually do 100 times when I try to play, when I'm like reevaluating a bet. And I'm like, if that game gets played 100 times, this many, like, because I do think if you played that Cowboys Broncos game 100 times. Maybe that was the one game where the Broncos played that well and the Cowboys played that bad. And granted, we did see a lot of those one game extreme scenarios on Sunday. We'll get to Jacksonville and Buffalo, when we break down those games a little later for sure. But I think if I had to take a side here, I would agree with Ross. I think this actually is a good teaser spot. Low total game, Eagles through 7, up to 9 or 8.5, wherever you get the number at. The one reason that I'm a little bit hesitant, I think of all the home field advantages, Denver's one that I would pause a little bit on a younger quarterback, maybe who hasn't played at altitude before. Jalen Hurts has played in some games in the SEC and maybe the Big 12. But maybe, I don't know, maybe go check what the box score was when Oklahoma. I don't know if they played any games at altitude in the past. But that way, I'm curious about that. Denver's home field advantage is interesting, even though the home field hasn't really played a factor this year. These teams are relatively even, based on all the analytical metrics that I look at. Net yards per play, DVOA, they're all kind of hovering in that middle tier range. So I don't really see an edge on either side here. And when you do get that, lack of an edge for me, it's take the points or tease it up. So I would say those are the two ways I would play this.
Ross, this is a big one in your futures play with the Eagles. I'm just saying, this is the one that could put you over the top of 6.5.
I still feel pretty good about that one. I got to be honest with you. I mean, they have 2 games against the Giants, 2 games against Washington. Yeah. Okay. It's going to be tight, but I still think they get to 7.
They haven't played Dallas. Have they played Dallas yet? They have.
Yeah, they got blown out in Dallas. Yeah. All right. You mentioned the Bills, Jared, earlier. They are coming off that horrific loss where they were a 2-touchdown favorite. Not good. They ended up losing to the other Josh Allen, 9-6. Remember, Buffalo was the number 1 scoring team coming into that game. Now they got to deal with the plucky Jets, your Jets. And yes, Robert Saleh announced he is going with Mike White, everybody's favorite 405-yard passer in his NFL first start ever. And then he goes on Thursday Night Football, leads a touchdown drive in Indianapolis and hurts his forearm, and dreams are broken. But he's back. He's back now to take on the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. Ross, where's your Mike White jersey?
I wish I had one, although I'm kind of mad at him because he cost me 2 units against the Colts last week. I mean, he goes right down the field, scores a touchdown. I'm like, Mike White, baby. Mike, the price is white. And then he gets hurt. And how do you throw a touchdown pass after the injury and then not come back in the game? I don't know. I was frustrated, to say the least. That was like the jetsiest Jets game of all time. Meanwhile, I'm hearing Troy Aikman say that Robert Saleh says it's the best D-line group he's ever been around.
Oh, that was
close to stopping the Colts from getting 10 yards a carry. I mean, give me a break. I do like the Jets getting the points this week. I said earlier about the Chiefs, something's wrong with the Bills. They didn't look great on offense against the Dolphins. They're kind of sluggish. They made a couple plays in the second half. And then against the Jags, they couldn't do anything. The Jags totally shut them down. So this feels to me like 24-17 Buffalo, something like that. So if you're going to give me 13, 13.5, 12, whatever it is, all those points, I'll take them.
Couple thoughts on this one. First of all, I don't know. I know, Chris, you know about Wally Pipp, but I mean, is Zach Wilson about to get Wally Pipp by Mike White? If he keeps playing well,
wow.
I mean, now I haven't watched the press conference yet on Wednesday from Robert Saleh. I want to try to, analyze the body language, but, he was pressed on if Zach's healthy, is he the guy? And from what the reporters have tweeted out, there was some backtracking there, which I thought was fascinating. Again, I'll make my own analysis on the body language as best I can. I don't know how Robert Saleh's poker face is, but I do get the feeling that if Mike White continues to play well, he will be the starter for the rest of the season until he falters. That, again, is just some speculation from some of the clattering I heard on social media earlier this week. The other part of this that was fascinating to me, even last year when the Jets were way worse of a team than they were this year, they kept both of their games close against the Bills, who were a very good team. And they kept them both within this number of 13.5. So I do think, unlike the Chiefs, who are only laying 2.5, I feel much better about laying it with a broken team. I do not feel good about laying 2 touchdowns with a team that, you're right, Ross, they have not shown that throttle that we've seen in prior weeks from this Bills team. We might get it this week because I think they're good enough to turn it on at any moment. But until I see it, especially against a divisional opponent, I am absolutely going to take the points with the Jets here. Once White was confirmed as the starter, I bumped this up to a full unit. And on paper, this is a massive mismatch. But I think when you look at this game a little deeper, I think the Jets are playing maybe a little better than the Bills are right now at this exact moment. And I have no explanation for last week. That was one of the most extreme results you will see in the NFL, a 15-point favorite and failing to score a touchdown against a team as bad of a defense as the Jags. You would expect them to positively regress. But again, seeing is believing. So we'll see if they can bounce back this week. I'm going to bet no, and this game stays close.
Did you throw anything at the TV Thursday night, Ross, when Josh Johnson threw the pick at the goal line? You had the backdoor cover sitting right there.
Oh, my gosh. You were talking about a roller coaster of emotions. The whole game. I mean, I guess that's why we do what we do. I guess that's why we have the show, because that game was over. There was nobody watching that game except for people that had money on the spread. That's it. That's all there is to it.
By the way, he got demoted back to the practice squad, which sucks because I thought the dude actually played great. Coming back, he's a third-string quarterback, lifer in the NFL. I was happy for him. I felt shitty for you, though. Sorry, bro. By the way, keep this in mind. Jets have scored at least 30 in back-to-back games since Zach Wilson went out.
Wow.
Just saying. All
Wally
right,
Pitt.
let's move on.
Wally Pitt.
A little quicker on this one, guys. Vikings and Chargers. Chargers back home after snapping that 2-game slide with a win in Philadelphia. About a field goal favorite. And you say, wait a second. Minnesota's all over the place. Keep in mind, their 5 losses are by a combined 18 points this year. Jared, where are you going?
Yeah, this is another one of those toss-up games. And I think the big edge for me here is Minnesota running the ball and the Chargers just, brutal at stopping the run. The worst in the league, actually, according to DVOA. And I know some of the rush yards per game numbers back that up as well. The Dalvin Cook situation is interesting this week. I absolutely do not want to touch on which side matters because it doesn't. The only thing that matters is he going to play? Is he going to suit up? We're hearing yes. Right. As long as he plays, and even if he doesn't play, I think the Vikings are deep enough to run the ball effectively on this Chargers team. But obviously, you want Dalvin Cook in the lineup. He looked tremendous last week against the Ravens. And I do think that this Vikings defense is also playing very well. They're third against the pass, according to the DVOA numbers. And I think the Chargers don't lean on the running game enough to really make them pay for having a poor rush defense. So I think this game matches up fairly well for the Vikings, and I'm getting 3 points. So I will take the 3 with Minnesota.
I think that's a pretty good bet. When I saw it, Minnesota was getting 2.5. So I took the opportunity to tease them through the 3 and the 7 up to 8.5. We know that Minnesota keeps games close. I don't envision the Chargers blowing them out at all. So I love the Vikings as a teaser leg. But even if it had gotten to 3.5, I would have been on Minnesota just getting the points. I like Jared's bet there.
By the way, the Vikings 3-0 as a dog against the spread this year. And keep in mind, even though they're sub 500, they're only a game out of the playoff chase. And they're one of those teams that if they sneak in as a 7 seed, I know that the NFC is top heavy, and I get it. But man, for some reason, that's not a team you want to see. No. Just the way they've got enough weapons and their defense is pretty good. We remember what they did down in New Orleans a couple of years ago when they
can run the ball. Saints. They can control the tempo of a playoff game. Yeah. That's huge in January.
All right, so the Jags, Urban Meyer got a win. I don't know if he was still wearing his headset. I didn't pay enough attention to that, Ross. My apologies. They are on the road in an AFC South battle. They are at Indy. Colts are a double-digit favorite in this one. When you get to double digits, I know both of you guys kind of get scared in terms of laying points. Are you scared, Jared?
I'm never scared when I think I have an edge on the market. I don't care if it's 100 points that I'm laying. If I think a team's going to win by 101, then I feel like I have an edge. And I think I've got an edge this week with Indy. I mean, I get a chance now to fake because let's just if the Colts didn't give up 30 points against the Jets, and if the Jaguars got blown out by Buffalo as everyone expected, this line's probably 12 or 13. But it's not. It was a 10.5 look ahead, and obviously it moved slightly in Jacksonville's favor after they won on Sunday. And I think that gives me a hair of value on the Colts. And I think the Colts are going to run the ball right down the Jags' throat, unlike Buffalo last week, who really didn't try to do that very much. And I just think this is a perfect fade spot after arguably the most extreme result we've seen in the NFL over the last few seasons. So I'm going to lay it with Indy. I like that T.Y. Hilton was back at practice this week. You saw the spark he provided when he did return a few weeks ago, and I would love to see him back on the field this week. I think that makes the Colts offense that much more dynamic. We know how good Jonathan Taylor is. Carson Wentz has been playing better. I have no issues laying it with Indy here in this spot. I think they win by 2 touchdowns or more.
I don't mind any of Jared's logic. In fact, I think Jared's having his best day on the show so far. I am following along with everything
Write that down
Jared's
here.
saying. I will say this. I think less than 10, it would be a really good number. Over 10, not as much. But the one thing we know is that the Jaguars can't handle prosperity. They get that win over the Dolphins, and then their next game, they played the Seahawks and let Geno Smith absolutely light them up. Carson Wentz and the Colts did get a little extra time to rest and prepare for this game. And the Jaguars, they're going to essentially be resting on their laurels from that Bills win. Whether or not it's by double digits, we'll find out. But I would rather lay it with Indy than take the points with the Jags. That's for sure.
The Colts, this is the third time they've been a double-digit favorite this season, and they've covered both times. Just saying. And by the way, I did check the odds earlier. Jared, that people didn't believe in you, that you were going to have a good show. It was plus 800 whether or not you would have your best show of the year.
Wow.
That's smack in the face.
That doesn't surprise me. It's been a rough couple of weeks.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Are we really here?
Oh, boy.
Ross, do you really want to talk about the Lions?
Yes, I do. Again,
Okay.
I'm a glutton for punishment.
Okay, let me set it up. Lions, coming off the bye week. They still have yet to win. They are at Pittsburgh. They're almost getting double digits. Depends on where you shop, and maybe let this one shake out a little bit. Are you still on your former teammate's side with Dan Campbell?
Yes, and in fact, I got them, the Lions, when they were getting 9 points. Now I see one place where they're only getting 8 points. So, as usual, I think that's one of the reasons why I don't do as well on the show as Jared does, because Jared gives out his jaredsnumbers.com or wherever Jared finds the numbers that are always in his favor.
Meanwhile, shopping.
I do another show on Tuesday, okay? The Even Money podcast. I've been doing it for years. And what happens is after I do that, the lines move because I'm a line mover, okay? I move mountains. So what happens is I say my good stuff on Tuesday. By the time we get to Thursday, the lines moved, and I ruined my value for the Pickswise show. I apologize to Pickswise Nation, but I'm telling you, take the Lions and the points every year. Mike Tomlin and the Steelers lose one game to a team that they should never, ever lose to. Sunday at 1 o'clock, usually after they just won a big primetime game. I'm just saying, take the Lions and the points.
I love the analysis. I also love every week I feel like you come up with a new name for my, sports book that I shop, get my lines at. We'll see what you come up with next week. I'm always fascinated. So I don't tease underdogs a ton, like the big underdogs, like the 8, 9, 10 points. But the more I dive into this game, the more I think getting Detroit through 14 with a total that's 42 is very appetizing for me. So I don't have it officially on my teaser legs this week, but the more I hear Ross's take on Detroit, and I agree that Pittsburgh looked very vulnerable. I changed my mind on Pittsburgh a little bit after Monday. I thought their defense looked, I don't want to say vulnerable, but they definitely looked like there were some holes there that I didn't expect, especially in the secondary. Now, I know Jared Goff is not as mobile as Justin Fields, so maybe those holes will be buttoned up this week. But if I get 14.5, if you go from 8.5 to 14.5 in a game that's a total of 14 or 42, that is a very favorable teaser leg for me. So that's the only way I would consider playing this. I would love to see the Lions win because I've got a future on the Texans that have the worst record in the NFL, and the Jags won and other teams are winning. So if the Lions can get 1 or 2 wins, I might get home on that future. So I'm rooting for Detroit here for sure. And I do think that teaser leg is appetizing to me because of the lower total and the incredibly high spread if you can get it through 2 touchdowns.
Okay, there's 2 mathematical notes I want you to keep in mind when you're thinking of playing this game. One really doesn't have to do with the number, but the Lions, they're 0-8 for the 4th time in history. In the previous 3 times, they lost that 9th game. So they've never won. They've never won that night game. But that doesn't mean they didn't cover. It doesn't mean I'm just telling you. Now, Ross, this will perk up your ears. You're going to like this one. The Steelers are 0-4 against the spread at home. They are 0-4, which means they have not taken care of business against the spread at home. So, Ross, when you not only cover, you can celebrate with your. If the Lions get a win, I want you dressing up as a lion and give us your best arr.
If the Lions win outright, I'll do something next week. That's for sure.
Good. By the way, that's as a home favorite. The Steelers are 0-4, which is what it is.
Which was Monday night. I mean, that was the exact same scenario that played out Monday night.
Thank you for cleaning up my mess, producer extraordinaire Jack, as always.
Busy
now we get on to an interesting game. Cleveland at New England. These are a pair of teams that are fighting it out. New England is the 7th seed right now in the AFC playoff chase. The Browns with a huge win on the road at Cincinnati last week. But Cleveland's got all sorts of COVID issues, and it has hit a particular position. So they're taking away their number one weapon on offense, most likely, in Nick Chubb. Dearness Johnson, as of the taping of this show, seems to be healthy, but it is running through that room. They've had a few other players pop positive in other positions. So it's a little scary. Is it a little scary to touch this game, Jared? Let's just start out with that when you're unaware of a particular position. We saw it happen with the Packers receivers a few weeks ago in Arizona, and they not only covered, but they ended up winning the game outright against a team that had been previously undefeated.
I got some great feedback from bookmakers on this exact situation this week. And at its core, in a vacuum, let's say Chubb is out for an injury, that would not move the betting line. But when it's COVID and when it's in a certain positional group's room, that matters. If you have no running backs on your team that are healthy, that is important. That will move the line because there is fear that the one positive test will lead to others inside of that positional group's, room. So that's why I think if this line does move significantly in favor of New England after we hear the COVID dust settle, I do think you might get some hidden value on Cleveland just because the line shouldn't move because of a running back injury or deletion from the lineup, but it is moving because of the fear surrounding the COVID uncertainty. So obviously that doesn't really provide a lot of, clarity on what's going to happen on Sunday, but you might, if this line does move back to 3, which is where it started before Cleveland had their really impressive Sunday win, and the Patriots look good, but, Carolina was really dreadful in that game. So I think Cleveland's the right side for me here. I think the teaser leg is an even better way to play it because, again, low total game, moving it through those key numbers of 3 and 7. But if this game does get back to 3 because there's more fear about the running backs being sidelined for the Browns, I would consider taking the 3 with Cleveland as well. You're betting on the fact that maybe one of those guys will play, but it's still probably – the line's probably moving too much against the Browns because of a running back, deletion.
I like what Jared said about the Browns as a teaser leg. I think that's the smart bet in this one. Whether you find them right now getting 1.5 or getting 2, tease it up to 7.5 or 8. But I'd also say this: I kind of like the Browns on the money line. I kind of like the Browns to win the game. I don't like that Chubb's out. I think that or potentially out. We'll find out. But I really like what I saw from the Browns on Sunday against the Bengals. I think they're the more talented team than the Patriots. I think these are similar teams right now, but I think the Browns are more talented than are the Patriots, and I think they're going to show. I think it's a great game, and I think Mac Jones, the Patriots coaching staff, they deserve a ton of credit. But I still think if you just look at the rosters, the Browns have better players, and that includes getting Donovan Peoples-Jones more involved and seeing what he can do.
I would assume that if you think the Browns can win, that you believe that Baker Mayfield can outduel Bill Belichick's thinking. Because whether they're probably not going to have Chubb. They're going to be severely depleted. They still have a very, very good offensive line. But what is Belichick known for? Taking away what you do best. And what the Browns do best is run the football. So you have faith that Baker Mayfield can, A, make the right decisions, and B, make the right throws against an outstanding New England defense, Ross. Is that the way I'm reading it?
Correct. And that's because he's been freed. There's a lot of talk about free OBJ. They freed Baker. They freed the Browns. They freed Cleveland when they got rid of that guy.
I agree.
Interesting. Let's continue on. Speaking of interesting games, you got the Saints coming off that heartbreaking loss at home. Younghoe Koo, that guy's an assassin, doing guys in with his right foot. Taking on the Tennessee Titans, who are now the number 1 seed in the AFC after a very impressive and physically dominating performance Sunday night on the road against the Rams. Guys, this is amazing. The Titans have won 5 in a row. They are 5-0 against the spread in that span. They took care of Jacksonville. Then in their last 4, Kansas City, Buffalo, the Colts, and the Rams. That's impressive stuff, Ross Tucker.
Blown away by what their interior defensive line has been able to get done. I mean, they totally dominated the Rams up front in that game. Danico Autry, Jeffrey Simmons, those guys were awesome. I don't think they're doing that to the Saints offensive line. I think the Saints offensive line is better than the Rams offensive line. Wow. I know the Titans have been on a great stretch, but I kind of feel like the Titans are due. Look, we've been around a long time, okay? Titans have been on an amazing stretch. This isn't lasting forever. They had less than 200 yards of offense against the Rams. Trevor Siemian actually played better than people realize. He's not going to just give them spot them 14 points like Matthew Stafford did. I really like the Saints and the points in this one. I think the Saints have a great chance to win the game outright.
Yeah, this is another great teaser leg. There's a lot of low total games this week. There's a lot of good teaser spots out there. This is certainly one of them, getting the Saints through 7. I all the credit in the world to Tennessee. I actually did put a little futures action on them this week to win the AFC because I think they're probably going to get the 1 seed, or at least they're the favorites right now to get the 1 seed. And at this point in the season, I like to try to predict who's going to be the 1, because the 1 seed matters way more now than it did in years past because there's only 1 bye. So I think Tennessee's as tough as nails. They're 6-1 straight up as a underdog of 6 points or more under Mike Vrabel. I mean, that is incredible. They are winning games outright when they're underdogs by touchdown with this guy as their head coach. I think they are the toughest team right now in the NFL, but this is against the point spread, whereas they were an underdog last week. Now they're a favorite. And when you flip that script, I would rather take the points in a game that is clearly being booked as a low total game, and that obviously the Saints have the edge defensively. I know the Titans defense played really well, but I think if you asked me, man to man, that the Saints defense is much more talented and much more solid, top to bottom than the Titans are. So I'll take the better defense catching over a touchdown with the teaser. And we gave you a couple other spots to tease it with. Cleveland, I think Ross gave out a couple good ones too. But I think if I had to rank my teaser legs this week, I think I might put New Orleans at the top.
Okay. I haven't given you a lot of those are cool NFL research nuggets for you. So I'm going to try this one on for size. I told you they've got a 5-game winning streak. The first one came against Jacksonville, the last 4 against playoff opponents from a year ago. So if the Titans beat the Saints here, there's only one other team in NFL history that has ripped off 5 in a row with those 5 wins coming against playoff teams from a season ago. And that was the 2003 Philadelphia Eagles, who went all the way to the NFC Championship game that year.
Great.
Ross, do you like that?
That is an awesome nugget. Well done, Chris. Well done. I like it.
Thank you. Give myself a pat on the head for that. Let's get to a little Monday Night Football. A pair of California teams that are still smarting after getting taken care of in their own stadiums. The Rams are on the road, and they're about a 4-point favorite at San Francisco. And I really wonder where San Francisco's mindset is right now. They had it basically, in my opinion, it was a 2-game season. Home games against Arizona, who was depleted, no Kyler, no D-Hop, no A.J. Green, didn't have to deal with Chase Edmonds after the first drive, and they got blown out at home. And then they play the Rams here. If they had won those 2 games, they're back to 5-4. They're in the mix, at least for one of those bottom seeds in the NFC playoff chase. Now they're a mess. If they don't win this week, you're going to get quarterback questions moving on. People are going to wonder if Kyle Shanahan is really a good coach or if that Super Bowl appearance was just an anomaly. So, Jared, with all that being said, are you interested in playing this game at all?
Not right now. I agree that there's a lot of indecision about who these teams really are. I thought the Niners coming in were going to be not to this game, but to this season. a team that was going to matter this year and a team that, has their ducks in a row. I credit a lot of, what the front office has done over the last few years with their player moves. And I think they've drafted really well and they put all the pieces in the right place, but they've been decimated by injuries. And it's like there's like one little puzzle piece that's not in the right place with this Niners team, because they should have totally handled that game on Sunday against Arizona. And they let Colt McCoy run around and look like, Mike Vick. I mean, he looked great last week. So I don't know what their mindset is. And on the other side, the Rams, I mean, I know it's lessened a bit because we had 2 double-digit favorites lose outright Sunday afternoon. So the shock value of what happened Sunday night maybe was a little lessened. But I thought that was a smash-mouth game to the other side. Everyone thought the Rams were going to be the one smashing Tennessee in the face in that game, but it was a smash-mouth game towards the Titans. And what's the Rams, mindset going in? They're probably a little bit licking their wounds. So I think this is a toss-up game, which makes me want to take the points. But I think right now I'm just going to wait and see if I, feel any differently after the action on Sunday. Maybe the line does move a little bit more in the Niners' favor, which makes them more of an enticing underdog. But for me, this is a pass right now.
Yeah, right now I could only go with the Rams. I could only lay it with the Rams. I don't expect that the Niners can dominate interior offensive line of the Rams like the Titans did the other night. I don't see that happening again. I don't see Matthew Stafford having 2 Wentz moments in the first quarter of the game like he had against the Titans. I think the Rams bounce back. I think the Rams are one of the best teams in football. I think the Niners are very troubled. That was a horrible loss to the Cardinals. That was a game they had to have. And you're right, Chris. It wasn't even close. I would lean to the Rams and laying the points.
Stafford's health concerns me a little bit too. I heard some rumblings about his back. That would be the one thing that would make me, okay, this is probably a pass.
Well, Jimmy G is 4-0 against the Rams at home. No? Anybody want to bite?
The Niners are going to put that. We've seen bad teams play well this year in certain spots. I would expect the Niners eventually to put 60 minutes together. I don't know if it's going to be this week, but they have the talent. The talent is there. The roster's stacked still. There's like a little mojo, something missing.
Well, I'll tell you what's missing for the Niners is anybody in the secondary. They got all those first-round picks up on the defensive line, but they have given up at least 30 in 4 games this year. Wow. Only the Houston Texans have done it more often. I don't know what's going on there. All right, let's get to our teaser legs, gentlemen. I know this excites you, Ross Tucker. Bang!
I do like me some teasers. I like me some teasers for sure. I'm going to start with Las Vegas. I like the Vegas. Look, the reason why Jared always talks about it, but the reason why teasers are nice is because you get through the key numbers, right? Like if a team's only getting 2.5 points, you're like, 2.5 points is nice, but they could lose by a field goal and you lose your bet. Well, you get them up to 8.5, then you got them. Then you still win the bet. That came through for me a couple teams last week. Certainly, that was a very positive thing. The Eagles, the Packers, both came through for me as teasers last week. I'll go Raiders, Vikings, and Ravens. Thursday night football. Raiders against the Chiefs. I think the Raiders have a great chance to win the game, but I'll go up and tease it up. Vikings against the Chargers. Ditto. And then teasing the Ravens down. A lot of times it seems like you tease teams up from 1.5 or 2.5 up to 7.5 or 8.5. I'm teasing the Ravens down from 7.5 to 1.5 because I just don't see the Ravens losing to the Dolphins tonight.
Interesting stuff on the Ravens. That's the one game I know we're going to talk about in a second, so I'll hold my analysis till then. I have one teaser locked in, Browns and Saints, which we discussed a little earlier. I think Cleveland, if you're getting that through 7, same thing with New Orleans, you're getting that through 7. In those lower total games, both of those games have totals at 40, I believe 42, 43, 44, somewhere in that low 40 range. That's kind of the sweet spot. That's why I like Pittsburgh in a Steeler in a teaser leg on Monday. And if you got on the right side of the number, you covered because it was a very low total game, even though the game did go over. But those are the games I usually target. 1.5 to 2.5 point spreads, get it up through 7, or on the flip side, 7.5 to 8.5 point spreads, get it down to a pick 'em. I think with Tennessee is, I think Tennessee to me, if you look at this Titans team, the defense is where I was so shocked. They were a 20th ranked DVOA team last week, and they bumped up to 10th this week after that one game against the Rams. That's how dominant the defense was against the Rams last week. I don't think they can play that well again. And I do think New Orleans will keep this game close because, again, you're getting them in a bounce-back spot after a really tough loss last week against Atlanta. And in the Browns, I just feel like what Ross said makes sense to me, and the handicap I gave out with just how much more talent Cleveland has on their roster compared to New England. And if you're giving me a full touchdown and a half, 7, 8 points, I do think that is a game that will be close. So I like those low total games to stay close with Cleveland and with the Saints.
By the way, Jared, I just want to let you know that Ross is on a 4-week teaser streak.
I'm happy for him. I'm thrilled. When he wins, we win.
Look at him.
Because Pickswise wins. Look. He's thrilled right now.
You haven't been that smiley since Mrs. Bresnicki's 7th grade science class, Ross. Look at you.
Mrs. Bresnicki. That was actually a teacher's name who was close to that. It was actually pretty hot. That's so funny you say that. Not Bresnicki, but it was close. It was close.
What was it, Ross?
I'm not going to say it. No, I can't say it. It could get back to her. It ended in icky, though.
Oh,
wow.
That's not good.
So we've discussed Ross's extended second toe and some teacher named Icky that was kind of hot back in the day.
Yeah, I didn't mind
all
her.
over the map today.
Okay. Let's get on to the game you're calling tonight with the legendary Iron Eagle. By the way, are you guys like the reincarnation of the bird and the beard?
Oh,
I like that, Chris. I hadn't thought of that. Hopefully, I'd like to do as many games with Ian as possible. He is amazing.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he is really, really good.
He doesn't know who I am, but I'm a big fan.
Yeah. No, he definitely doesn't know who you are.
Yeah.
So Baltimore favored by more than a touchdown in this one. It's interesting because both teams have losing records against the spread. Ravens are 3-5 this year. The Dolphins are 3-5-1. All right, Ross, you're the expert. You've been doing all the analysis. Give us something good that can help us out.
Well, so a couple of things. One is the Dolphins' defense is getting back to how they played last year. And it hasn't manifested itself in as many turnovers yet, but the Dolphins have played really good defense now 4 weeks in a row. And so that's something I'll be watching tonight. Maybe this is an under game because of that. The flip side is the Ravens passing game. The thought process was always, well, the problem with the Ravens offense, Lamar Jackson, what if they get behind and they fall behind, they can't cover? What? Colts game, Chiefs game, last week against the Vikings, they can come from behind. They have taken their passing game to another level, and I just don't think the Dolphins are good enough offensively. It's a weird game because the Ravens aren't as good on defense as they normally are, but I don't have a whole lot of faith in Miami's offense. I do have a choice or two for the anytime touchdown, which I know we'll get to in a little bit, but I like the Ravens to win the game. I don't have a strong feel with the spread. I think the spread's about right, which is why I tease the Ravens down.
Yeah, the spread is getting a lot of action though in Baltimore. It's probably going to be one of the more publicly bet sides of the week. Not as heavy volume because the Thursday night games, especially if it's a matchup that's not a marquee matchup, might not get the volume that a Sunday game will. But certainly a standalone game will get a lot of handle and it'll get a lot of attention in its own right. And I am seeing a lot of the money come in on Baltimore, and we haven't seen it really move significantly towards the Ravens, despite the fact that it reopened over 7. And that's kind of the no man's land. Usually, actually, once it gets to 8, 8.5, the books will be very quick to move it to 9 because they want to protect themselves against the teasers. But we haven't seen that here, despite the fact that everyone's betting Baltimore. So I would be hesitant to lay the full 7.5, 8 with the Ravens. But I do think it's a good teaser leg. It's not my favorite teaser leg of the week because the total's slightly elevated in the mid to high 40s. But I think if you were going to rank 5 or 6 teaser legs of the week, this one's definitely on the board for sure. I just think Baltimore's offense is really the story here. I thought the Vikings were going to run away with that game on Sunday. Impressive comeback. I think Lamar Jackson is really evolving as a quarterback and as a thrower and learning when to throw and when to run and managing that, hey, sometimes we need to run. I need to, stretch the edge, but I think he's doing a lot better job throwing it too. And he's got his buddy Rashad Bateman now healthy, which I really like that. Marquise Brown's not dropping passes every week. That's good. I think Baltimore's offense is ripe. So I think this is a good teaser spot. Not a great teaser spot, but this is a good teaser spot to get Baltimore under a field goal.
All right, Ross, I know you were very excited to get to our anytime touchdown. I just want to remind people that we're not only interested in helping you win money, we want to give away some money. So these guys are each going to make their pick for an anytime touchdown. If you follow us on Twitter and then you retweet it when these guys hit their right pick, you're going to have a chance to win $100. So we're going to give away that to a Pickswise follower. It's very simple. Just follow us on Twitter. You're going to get all the great information. Then you retweet us as well when these guys hit it. Ross, go. Give me something good.
I got two for you, one for each team. Let's start with the Ravens. Devontae Freeman. His playtime percentage has gone up 4 straight weeks. He is, I think they believe now, their best running back. Devontae Freeman, of all people, I think the Ravens believe he's their best running back. That gives him a really good chance to score a touchdown in this game. So for the Ravens, I like Devontae Freeman at plus 130. And then for the Dolphins, Mike Gesicki's been unreal. I mean, he has been a dominant tight end. It seems like he's Tua's favorite guy. He's Brissett's favorite guy. He's everybody's favorite guy. He's a gigantic target in the red zone. And he's plus 220, which is pretty darn good. So I like Gesicki for the Dolphins and Devontae Freeman for the Ravens.
That was Gesicki was on my list for the Dolphins, but Ross had the first round pick, so we'll give him that one. I'll go for the Ravens. I like Rashad Bateman a lot. They've been moving him in, out of the slot, all over the field. He's been a weapon for them over the last couple weeks since he came back healthy, and I don't think he's scored yet. So I like him to score soon. And since I can't use Gesicki, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really love a ton of Dolphins this week. I'll give you another Raven, and this is a guy that I always go to as kind of my old reliable, but Mark Andrews is, speaking of red zone beasts, he's a guy that Baltimore loves to target in the red zone. He had that 2-touchdown game a few weeks ago, hasn't scored in a couple of weeks, and I do think if you were going to ask me, who's going to score more touchdowns tonight, I would definitely say Baltimore. So we'll give you 2 Ravens. Bateman's the better bet, I would say, because you're getting over 2-1. But I think Andrews is also going to get some looks in the red zone tonight.
When these guys hit, remember to follow us on Twitter, then retweet them. You'll have a chance to win $100 courtesy of Pickswise, because some lucky fan out there is going to reap the rewards of these guys' hard work. By the way, I'm going to give you one last note. Only one player in the Super Bowl era has finished in the top 10 in passing and rushing in a full season. Lamar has a really good chance of doing that. He's 6th in rushing right now. Who is it?
Give it to me one more time.
There only one player in the Super Bowl era has finished in the top 10 in passing yards and in rushing yards in the same season, in a full season, not a strike shortened season or anything. It's a good guess, but it's not right.
Randall Cunningham.
Randall Cunningham is correct.
There you go.
Good job.
That is good. That's really impressive.
And on that, we will dismiss class. So for our outstanding producer, Jack Harrison, also Ross Tucker, whom you can listen to on Westwood One with Ian Eagle tonight. Look forward to that on Thursday Night Football. And Jared Smith, I am Chris Rose. We'll see you next time on Pickswise Playbook. Now go win some dough.